Good morning. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. Mahatma Gandhi. Okay. Please stand as you're comfortable and join in singing our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me.
The following words are those of Dero K. Farrar, Director of Music at First Unitarian Church of Portland, Oregon. On a recent Sunday, I said to the choir, "So often we make the mistake of living according to our hopes instead of according to our realities." I didn't mean to say it, and I didn't know that I would. But as I did, the statement became immediately true. I wonder if in our efforts to be the change we wish to see in the world, we stop short at our ideal selves, the idea of ourselves we are most comfortable with. I wonder how often I think I've already been the change, and I'm waiting idly for the tendencies of the world to catch up. I'm unsettled by how frequently I'm surprised by my own social idiocy. How many times need I screw up the same person's pronouns or note that I am not surprised that the person who just nearly ran me off the road is of a certain race and or age, and make immediate assumptions about someone because what of I perceive to be their class? Or maybe this is a better question. How many times do I need to make mistakes at the expense of other people or people's groups before I am ready to admit that I am not any better at this than the bigoted and willfully ignorant? I am liberal, often painfully so. I am not enlightened, and I am not elevated. I am not better. But I believe with everything that I am, that I can be. Change is a word on wheels. It's not a destination, but a journey. If I am to be change, I must commit to humility and refuse to settle for my own comforting achievements.
Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Rosemary, your service leader for the day. If you're with us on the internet, or if you're with us sitting in the chairs around me, we are one community united in our commitment to each other and our commitment to live out our principles in the world. As we begin today, I want to remind you to silence your cell phones and to be mindful of the variety of interaction levels preferred by the people in our community here, indicated by red, yellow, or green wristbands. This morning, I am pleased, so pleased, to welcome Sarah in the pulpit. Sarah serves this church as a member of the Religious Services Committee, the Religious Education Collaborative, and Summer Magic Camp Wizard. She is a mother of 2 amazing youth, a game enthusiast, and soon to be on stage in the early June production of We Did It Together, an original play which will have its premiere at the McKinney Center on June 3rd at 7:30 p.m. As we light our chalice, we are reminded that every day changes each of us. Every day changes you, sometimes a lot, sometimes barely, but life never stops. It evolves, and you are growing. Even when you can't see it, you are doing the best you can. We welcome you, old friends and new, young and old. You are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first visit or 1,000th visit with us, we are stronger because of your presence. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today is the 5th Sunday of the month, and I want to remind folks of a long history this church has, that normally we collect money for our church and for programs each Sunday for this church, for the running of the church and community needs. But on the 5th Sunday, we have historically had the tradition of collecting funds for a community need outside, like Hunger First, that kind of thing. I am sorry to say that our volunteer from Jacobs Nature Park cannot be here, and she will take a rain check and we will see her again. We will not be taking funds for that charity or that community gem today. You will get that pleasure in a future 5th Sunday. And let me skip all that. Music speaks to a part of us deeper than words. Today's musical gift is Blue Boat Home, which is Sarah's favorite, and I know it tops the charts for many of us. Me too. So it is an all-skate song, led by members of our choir and all of you as honorary choir this morning.
Low below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbored nor port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Thank you. You all passed your audition. That which is in us and all around us, and which constantly draws us to our holiest selves, remove from me any spirit of complacency that would aim to prevent me from seeing the truth of myself. Strengthen me as I commit to a lifestyle of development, and remind me that that lifestyle is simply called love. Amen. Dero K. Farrar. Come to this community with all that you are. Your joys and your concerns are welcome here. We share our moments of joys and sorrows with us through using these candle cards. If you are with us in person, or if you email Reverend Tiffany at minister@hvuc.org with the words candle card in the subject. Please make sure to indicate whether or not you would like the card read aloud in the service, which is still being broadcast publicly on YouTube. Are there cards that need to be collected this morning from the caring team? Okay. I do have two cards. We share a candle of great joy when we welcome Charles Vincent, born May 19th in Naples, Florida. He is the first grandchild of Beth and Dave Calvert. So yay. A candle of grief for the children and teachers at Robb Elementary School who were killed in a school shooting this week. A candle of support and care for their parents, children, and teachers who are dealing with the aftermath. In our grief, may we find our resolve renewed to push for change that will make our schools and public spaces safer. On this Memorial Day weekend, we light one candle to honor those who have died in this nation's wars. If you want a candle to be lit for yourself, a loved one, or a situation close to your heart, I will invite you to make that request by standing or by raising your hand when we sing Loving Kindness, which will happen in just a moment. Then I will acknowledge each of you with a motion of my hand, and then you can sit down or lower your hand after I acknowledge you. And we will light our first candle for you who are not in the building, but are in our hearts and minds. light a final candle for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and minds. The reading is a post that has been going around on Facebook written by Sarah's dad, Pastor Richard Olsen. Sarah's dad is in the tail end of the boomer generation, and this is his perspective watching his millennial children grow into adults and hearing so much negative about millennials from others of his own generation.
I've been seeing several things on Facebook about millennials. They are being mocked for their participation trophies and safe spaces. They are scornfully criticized for believing they can actually change the world with protests and selfies. Then the writer bemoans the day when they will become leaders of industry and government. I was thinking, where did these millennials get those participation trophies and safe spaces? Was it from space aliens? No, it was from their boomer and buster parents. We became helicopter parents who encouraged even boys to get in touch with their feelings. We told them that everyone is valuable and that participation is important even if you aren't the best. We encouraged them to dream big. We told them about how our generation marched on Selma and Washington and ended segregation. We told them about protesting the Vietnam War, and we also told them that we should have known the difference between supporting our troops while protesting the war. We told them about our successes, landing a man on the moon and bringing down the Berlin Wall. We told them our partial successes and failures. We didn't win the wars on poverty, drugs, or teen pregnancies. Why should we be surprised that they are idealists who believe they can change the world? Maybe a better question is, why don't we believe it anymore? Maybe they can help us regain that idealism, even as we help them understand that changing the world is neither easy nor quick.
A few years ago, my partner bought me Wreck This journal. I had seen it on the shelves and quietly dropped hints that this was something I'd be interested in. This is a book you're supposed to do silly things that are intended to be imperfect, messy, and sometimes destructive. I remember flipping through the pages that Christmas morning, seeing things like jump on the page with muddy shoes, or drag this page behind you while on a walk. I started to consider my timeline. Would the perfect muddy day be after I had completed a few activities? Somewhere near the end, the very beginning. I thought maybe if I had a book that had instructions on how to make a mess, I would feel more freedom to do so. I hate getting dirty if I'm not able to control it. I won't eat apples or sticky things without immediate access to a sink afterward. Watching other people create or be crafty, especially if there's a risk their mess will transfer on to me, or I'm the one who has to clean it up, is one of my nightmares. So I thought with permission to change something like this or make a mess, I would do so. This is the book today. It's traveled a little bit because I carried it in my purse everywhere with the intention to mail it, to wreck it, or at least think about wrecking it. That hasn't happened. The only thing I've done is written my name right here in the very front. All this damage you see came with it, like those expensive jeans you buy that are already ripped up. I was so scared of ruining the pages or activities that I simply never did it. The book still exists in a very pristine condition. I suppose what really highlights the irony is the fact that I'm a card-carrying ruiner. It's on my birth certificate, simply by being born in the generation known as millennial. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I remember headlines screaming that we've ruined sliced cheese and can openers. One day it was marriage, the next day it was divorce. So why couldn't I ruin this book? Right? It's weird. I should have been able to. Was I genuinely scared of what would happen afterward? Would I regret what I had done? It's funny because when preparing for today, anytime I needed inspiration, I would change my location. One day, I dragged my laptop to a park with my lunch. The sun, with its joyful, glorious self, heated my laptop in just a few minutes to the point where I had to blast the car's air conditioning on it or risk it overheating. Another day, I decided to sit on my porch, where also in 5 minutes, my laptop had a slight green hue from all the pollen dust. In the end, I found myself back at home and cozy under a blanket, right where I started. And on the outside, this doesn't look like anything changed. I ended up in the same spot, surrounded by the same cats, and with the same deadline. But at the same time, even though each of those instances were brief blips in the journey, they still are a part of change. I got to experience a respite of warmth and sunshine with a delicious lunch. I was able to sit outside and see the change of the plants and be a resting spot on their journey, even though it interfered with mine. But I had to take initiative in order for those changes to happen. It's easy to say that those moments were ruined by the sun or the pollen because neither situation worked out as intended. I didn't get any typing done outside, which, while arguably true, doesn't mean those moments couldn't be used to spark something new. I couldn't reuse or salvage those moments for their intended purpose of writing, but I could use them as moments for a change of scenery, a breath of fresh air, and just a few minutes to step away from the busy moments of life. They were moments of change that I needed. They weren't ruined. They were just different than expected. I expected moments where I would get lots of work done, but instead, they were moments I ended up hot and pollinated. I'm not a flower. But this kind of ruin was instead the change I needed, an experience that will encourage new inspiration or drive. So change, here I come, kicking and screaming. A few weeks ago, I stood up here and I told you I was capable of change because adaptation lives inside my bones and core self. And I told us to remember that there is no final result. So let's start with that end. The final result. There is going to be an end to today's service. My journeys to the outside in an attempt at change of scenery and inspiration lead to that end. Once this service is put up on YouTube later, us service creators are no longer thinking about the service and planning for it. We aren't changing our songs as something new comes up or erasing swaths of paragraphs that don't seem right. There is an end. But there are also a beginning and a middle. For our service leader, it's the beginning of a break until she is service leader again. For some of us, in the middle of our own life changes and journeys of change, this might be the sunshine, or the pollen, or the rain in your journey. This might be the end of the service for May 29th, but there will be a service next week, and the week following, and so on. And each of these instances, these committee meetings, gatherings, and services are moments that decorate the journey of our church and our congregation. Holston Valley isn't the same it was 2 years ago, or 6 years ago when I joined, or decades back to when it first started, a time before I was even born. And this journey has been a process and series of changes. I can only imagine how scary that might have been decades ago to start up a Unitarian Universalist church. But now we have 2 buildings and a parking lot and consistent programming. If that and more is what we could do in 50 years, imagine what we could do in the next 50. We're not an end result. Perhaps it's that end result we're scared of. So let's go back to my journal. I'm scared that once I've done a page or 2 in it, I won't like them and I'll need to redo them. That the end result will be ruined. But what if, instead of focusing on the end results, I focus instead on the series of changes that are occurring throughout the process? One of the instructions is to cover a page with fruit stickers. They add the note of stickers off of fruit that's been bought. But if there's anything I suppose to learn from this book, is that I'm supposed to start breaking some rules. The process of collecting fruit stickers doesn't seem very interesting, and it'll probably be full of banana stickers at first. But seeing that page change over time is a journey in itself. It might start with bananas, but it might include a kiwi or apples when they're in season. It might include stickers with pictures of smiling fruit with hands and feet. If I'm intentional about my choices, it'll be a diverse and colorful page. But the page will change and tell a story over time. Until I stop buying fruit, a choice that I need to make, it will have no end result. And another instruction was to figure out a way to wear the book. I don't know about you, but if I saw someone wearing a book in a situation where it's not in their bag, I'm gonna be awfully curious. And that action might spark a conversation with someone about the book. It might lead to something interesting. It might lead nowhere. But it would put me outside of my typical comfort zone and force me to embrace a little change. On top of that, I'm welcoming someone else into it. Journeys of change are going to need all of us. Even my journal specifically asks for outside help. One page asks me to hang it in a public place and have people draw all over the page. On the If Found page, the finder is asked to flip to a random page, do the instructions, and then return the book. At some point, I would need to hand the entire book to the post office so that they can mail it to me. It would pass through hands, machines, vehicles, and a mailbox before it reaches me again. I can't do it alone. Even when it reaches back to my home, that's not the end. There's still more work to be done. So instead of me worrying about single-handedly ruining a book, perhaps I need to stop kicking and screaming about change and instead embrace it. Without those changes, I wouldn't meet new people or participate in an art project with friends. I might miss out on opportunities for my own growth change and potential relationships. I mentioned earlier that as a millennial, I'm part of the generation that ruins everything. But I didn't single-handedly ruin can openers, especially since I own one. And I didn't attend a meeting for millennials where we voted on our next ruining adventure. But we did grow up being told we were idealists who can change the world. We were told of the generations before us and believed that because they marched for civil rights and protested segregation, so could we. If our preceding generation could land a man on the moon, then surely we could do that and more. These were moments of change in my parents' and my grandparents' lifetimes that have shaped the landscape of the world now. Millennials today are adults who entered into a world we were not promised. We were promised a world where equality and justice exists, and we'd be able to live a stable and happy life. We were told to budget, to study, to work, to graduate, and to buy a house. Yet for most of us, that's not possible. We're only just coming out of the COVID pandemic and looking at a world where people are still treated unjustly for their skin color and who they love. We were told to fight, to protest, to change, to love, and to embrace who we are, our core selves. We were told to create the world we wanted, just as our parents and the generations before us did. So instead of accepting a world we do not want, we're changing it. Millennials are entering into politics, running for both local and federal positions, where we are looking to change the world and create the one we want to live in. We are protesting, writing letters, and speaking in churches. Maybe to some, our changes look like ruin. Often, we are told that we need to accept the world as it is and that what we are doing is too much. We are told that we need to go back to the good old days. But the generations before us didn't go back to the good old days, even when their preceding generations begged it of them. And neither will we. We are the people of the future. We're watching the generations succeeding us graduate high school and enter into this world. I'm watching my children grow up and see how I, my partner, and other adults in their life are creating and changing their worlds. I have talked to youth who inspire me with the ways they talk about their classmates and how they see the world. I have talked with people decades older than myself who have encouraged us with the works that they have done. I have talked with peers my age who have encouraged me to take action and be a part of change, even when it is terrifying. We were inspired by the generations before us. They did world-changing things. Millennials are doing world-changing things, and we will need people who are able to guide us and inspire us. We cannot do this alone, nor do we want to. We know the world we live in is not the same as it was when my parents were 33, and my children will enter into a world that will be different than now when I am 33, and will need to inspire and guide them. And that's terrifying, but exciting, because I know they are working towards a world that they need, one that is loving and inclusive and beautiful, full of ideals that I might not even be aware of at this moment. We are not creating end results, but instead contributing to an adapting and changing world. When the generations before us marched to Selma and ended segregation, that was not an end result. It wasn't an important and celebratory step, but there was, and is, still work to be done. Yes, men have stepped on the moon, but that did not mean that NASA closed their labs and said, "That is it. That is the end." Instead, they have continued to study the stars and send out more probes into space. They took a picture of Pluto and a black hole. That's impressive. Those instants were steps of change in a world ever-changing, and they were started by people who saw a world they envisioned and dreamed of, and then acted upon that change to create it. They did not do this alone. They relied on each other to keep the wheel of change moving for their idealistic world. Every time that we initiate change for our idealistic world is full of fear and excitement. We are forcing ourselves to look into a mirror that reflects who we are and the people before us. A mirror that shows all the things we wanted to ruin, but are still the same. The ideals that we fought for, and the many, many mistakes that have been made. But these changes, these moments of inspiration, can also be a window into a world we were promised, one that we all wanted, one that our children and our children's children can look at and say, "We see what you accomplished. We see your changes, and the work, and the ruin. We see your fear and your mistakes. And this inspires us to create the changes we want to see and create the world that we need.
I want to find this on the street. So, thank you, Sarah. As we extinguish this flame, may we be inspirational and believe we can change the world with selfies and protests. And may we carry that idealism with us into our actions, our worlds, our beliefs, and our community. I thank you for being with us today. Thank you to Sarah for offering her insights about how she was born to change the world, yet how hard embracing even small change can be. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who sit on this side of the sanctuary to make room for latecomers. Thank you to the quiet helpers, to the greeters, to those who run the gizmos and the gadgets necessary for service to run, those who collect our offerings, who bring beautiful flowers. Thank you, Ellen and Dana. And those who set up coffee for our enjoyment. Another thing we'll work on. I want to draw your attention to the insert in your bulletin today. On Thursday, June 9th at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom, we will have a special called Social Justice Call to Action meeting to vote on two separate position statements. One about reproductive freedoms, which will allow us to officially show up with our church sign for the number of events that are popping up about reproductive justice, and one about economic justice, which will allow our Washington, D.C. bus riders to bring our church's banner with us to Washington, D.C. The full text of these statements, as well as more information about the meeting, are in your insert and on our website.
All of us are agents of change. All of us are capable of learning to embrace change. Please take these nuggets of wisdom with you on your journey this week. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. From Barack Obama. The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. From Oprah Winfrey. Every day, the clock resets. Your wins don't matter. Your failures don't matter. Don't stress on what was, fight for what could be. From Sean Higgins. Miracles happen every day. Change your perception of what a miracle is, and you'll see them all around you. From John Bon Jovi. In order to design a future of positive change, we must first become an expert at changing our minds. From Jacques Fresco. Today was good. Today was fun. Tomorrow is another one. From Dr. Seuss.
Our hymn leaders, Linda and Gerald, are about to come back up here for our closing hymn. This is also when we will pass the offering plate. Please hold off your donations to Jacobs Nature Park. We'll do that on another fifth Sunday. For today, the offering collection will be taken for all the good work and needs of the church. If you're making a pledge payment, please mark that as such on the for line on your check. And thank you so much for your contributions.
This is hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Thank you.
Yay, church!
Yay, church!